Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. Guys, something weird happened this week, and I want your take on it. Bruce Willis sold the digital rights to his face for deepfakes.
What?
Right. Now, on one hand, I'm like, look, Bruce, do what you got to do to make money.
Yeah.
I assume this means we get more Bruce Willis films in the future.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
30 years from now.
What do you guys think of this? Because this is obviously just the first of many. I assumed we'd get Tom Cruise movies well past his death.
Yeah.
Just because of the church and what, they're all about making money on him. So,
Yeah.
But I did not see this coming with Bruce.
That's bonkers. In a way, that's genius because, hey, they're gonna do it regardless of whether or not he gets paid for it. Mm-hmm. So might as well cash in while he can, and so he can enjoy the money in his older years. But that's crazy. That's crazy that we live in this world.
He seems, because he's had some diagnosed mental things going on, and he seems like a guy in the last 5 to 6 years that it's like he's reaching, okay, I got to make sure I do enough work to take care of my family or something because I'm going to be gone soon. Because he was taking everything. He has made so many movies in the last few years that no one has ever heard of or seen. But, he's getting paid for all of those. So it just maybe just like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Sell this for a couple mil or whatever it is. And
It makes me wonder, and this is just me speculating, if he made this decision.
Oh.
If he made the decision for a lot of the last few movies he's done.
Yeah.
But also, so this is just us talking tech and everything. Now go into your industry side of this. And this is a notoriously difficult industry for an actor to get into.
Right.
When we just continue on using actors who have passed away, that literally does take a role away from a new actor.
For sure. I think it's a weird, I don't like the idea of the future of us just watching movies with dead people as CGI characters. Like, that's not cool, man. Like, I get now that we're doing all this prequel bullshit that we have to find a way to make, so-and-so exist. But it's awful. It's really, truly an awful thing to behold.
Yeah.
Even the de-aging thing they've started to do, it doesn't work very well.
No.
So, eventually it will look pretty good because that's just the way technology goes. But for a while, it's going to be weird. And there's going to be, Fred Astaire hanging out and Ginger Rogers hanging out with Bruce Willis on Die Hard 12 or some shit like that. So who knows what's going to happen with that? Or even when you get people who, as opposed to going through plastic surgery to the point where they start to look really weird, they'll just sell their likeness for when they looked the way they think when they look good. Mm-hmm. And that's how they'll be in movies in the future, as opposed to looking like somebody who has been there a few too many times.
That's a really interesting concept because that would be a really healthy way for some people to approach aging rather than to disfigure themselves.
I guess it's maybe better. I don't know if I'd still quite call it healthy because you're still denying the fact that you get older and you look different.
And it's okay. Well, the funny thing is watching somebody like Robert Downey Jr. in that Iron Man film where he's it's showing him as a kid talking to his dad, but he's still like a, 50, 60-year-old man's voice coming out of this young CGI face. I'm like, you can't change. You can't make everything. You can't take away someone's soul and force it to be like a youngin' again. You just can't. It doesn't work.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Did you see that James Earl Jones signed away the rights to his voice digitally?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, is that why his voice is showing up, but it's not actually his voice for Star Wars?
That was his voice in the Obi-Wan show, but this
Yeah.
means that, I mean, he's in his 90s now. This means that going forward, all they have to do is grab his voice from his various movies, modulate it, and make it say the words
Whatever they
they want
want.
to say.
Yeah.
There'd probably be a voice actor who would get inflection down or something, and then they would lay James Earl Jones's voice over that.
Oh, yeah.
But so now, what do you think, Vanessa? You're going to have young Robert Downey Jr.'s voice on a young Robert Downey Jr. well past the time he's passed away. He'll be able to make Iron Man movies.
Forever.
Yes,
Oh
exactly.
my God. I don't know. I don't want it, but the future is not up to me. So they'll
it's
make
kinda
money
bleak.
if it brings in money, they'll do it.
Yeah.
If
Hey,
it
here's
doesn't,
the twist the geeks can get behind, I guess you go with, is that, who's Iron Man? Robert Downey Jr. Who's always going to be
Yeah.
Iron Man. You don't have to worry about
some youngin
some of
stepping in
those
the role.
weird Batman recastings that happened in the 90s.
But there's something glorious about
Yeah.
it too. Like I love the weird recasting of I don't know, let's see what so and so can do in this role.
Well, we're seeing art getting taken over by artificial intelligence. We're seeing this
Yep.
kind of stuff happening. Music has been this way for the last 40 years.
Yeah, long time.
So yeah, we're living in a dystopian future, and it's getting more and more dystopian.
Here's a embarrassing reveal, but it's going to go right to your point about music. Yes, Dean and I watched The Masked Singer, and one of the guys who won on The Masked Singer, whose name I don't remember because he's more of a modern guy and I really wasn't familiar with him, T-Pain or something like that, I think it might have been, who made all of his hit records with heavy voice modulation. And he did it so much that he could not get anybody to record him with his real singing voice.
Oh my God.
So he went on The Masked Singer to sing in his real voice and ended up winning the season he was on because he's actually such a great singer. So
Wow.
why didn't you just sing that way from the start? Oh, I know, because producers told you this is the sound you have to have right now. So I was like, yeah,
That's incredible.
music has got that down.
Yeah, good times coming up. I want to talk about, I've been bitching and moaning on this show, well, since its inception, but just recently about Andor,
Ramp it up.
She-Hulk, Lord of the Rings, and just saying, could something fucking happen in any of these shows? Well, all these shows this week had some pretty fucking great episodes.
I'm a little behind on a few of them, but I'm caught up on at least Lord of the Rings. So yay!
I mean,
Me too.
that Lord of the Rings episode was something else. Have you seen
A
that?
lot happened, yes. Yeah.
That was Mount Doom, right? That was the
Yeah.
creation of Mount Doom?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure was.
It's like,
That's pretty fucking cool.
my.
That was pretty crazy. I'm like, wow, did everyone just die? Like, I feel like
Not
everyone.
everyone.
Not everyone, because I saw the next episode preview.
Right.
And you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies.
And I sure have.
Certainly. So yeah, there's at least one person, two people that survived from that.
Hey, that's a good point because the story that they're telling in Tolkien's notes takes place over thousands of years. So
Yeah.
do we as the
Are we
each
gonna
season
jump like 200 years? Or
exactly,
something?
which would
Yeah.
kill all of our human characters, right?
Right.
That's true.
So,
Wow.
although I think in Tolkien's world, the humans live much longer than
Longer.
they do here, but I don't think they live hundreds of years.
I don't know. Maybe he went with the biblical writings where Moses lived like
Sure.
800 years or something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was the one that I loved the most. I will
Where
say
they
this:
pretty much killed everyone.
that
Well,
that-
something did happen.
It's
Yeah, but the thing is, it happened in episode 6 of a 10-episode season,
Yeah.
and it should have happened in episode 3.
right.
Same thing with Andor. I just thought this was a really solid, interesting episode where all sorts of stuff was going on, and it should have happened an episode earlier. The third episode should have been the second episode. They needed to push that stuff around. And even She-Hulk finally showed us what is actually going to be happening for the rest of the season.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good to know.
But I was like, why is this happening on episode 6?
I've been waiting.
Yes.
Some weird magical thing they've come up with. Episode 6 is very important. People will put up with shit until episode 6,
Yeah.
and then we got to give them something.
This is how they end up with 24 episode seasons. You got to be careful.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is where it spirals out of control.
Okay, so that's me not bitching about the 3 shows I've bitched about relentlessly.
Well, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. I
nice.
mean, growth, you know? Growth for you, growth for them. So I went and saw the movie Smile
Oh,
in theaters.
Yeah.
It was a different movie than what I thought I was going to see, but it is not the movie it thinks it is, which is a very strange experience.
This does not sound like a positive review.
I don't know. There are things that were really good in it, but there were things that I was like, fuck you guys in it. So I don't know. There's just a lot of, like the main character is a little bit irritating, which is not great. But there are some really great moments of very deep creepiness. And then other times where they're like, but jump scares. Remember jump scares? Those are
Right.
so fun. But your monster doesn't actually do jump scares. So like that doesn't super work because the monster, much like, I want to say like Stephen King's, it wants you to know it's there. So that was rough. And just I think the thing that's the most frustrating is it starts off and you see a very low key scene and then whatever. And then it does the title and the title is like flashing, like rave, almost colors, like in your face, like screaming at you. And then you go into a quiet scene and it's like the whole film thinks it's this experimental, crazy, like we're Titan, we're raw, we're like some crazy bullshit. You don't even know what you're getting into, but it's not.
Wow.
It's a very standard horror film with like a couple of cool moments in it.
So it's sort of like somebody saw those films. Like, well, these are really fun and interesting, but I'm afraid to put in like a woman fucking a car
Totally.
or somebody eating raw meat so bizarrely uncomfortably like they do in Raw.
They set up so much stuff that is nothing. And like by the end of the film, I was like, what the fuck was that title at the beginning? And then the end, like they, all over the credits, they basically have this music that's just screaming at you like you're in a haunted house. I'm like, what is this? This has nothing to do with anything. So I just felt frustrated by it. It's not a bad film. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. I know it was a big hit at Fantastic Fest, I believe, this recently.
Also a big financial hit.
Yeah.
It was the big winner of the weekend, which kind of surprised me.
That's interesting.
They had
yeah.
great promotions for that
Yeah.
movie. I mean, the baseball play
Yeah.
with the woman sitting behind. Did you see those?
I missed
They
this.
sent, I guess there's a guy too, but I didn't see nearly as much of him. But they sent a woman into baseball to where, you know, you see the shots of the pitcher throwing. You can always see a certain group of the area and
Yeah.
put her right there,
Oh my God.
sitting there giving that creepy ass smile.
Oh my God.
Like
For the
through
whole
the game.
fucking game.
Yeah.
Oh, 4 hours or 3 or whatever. I don't know how long
So-
baseball takes.
Hired actor. So yeah, but so it worked though, man. I saw
That's
that
cool.
all over the place in baseball.
That
fields,
is-
at least.
Cooler than the film, probably.
Was this a Blumhouse?
You know, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay.
It
Sure seems like it should
sure
be though.
feels like it should be. Yeah. But yeah, I will say the creature, God, I don't even know how to say this. It has multiple forms as you see in the trailer, right? You can see like there's all these different people smiling. And there's one version of it that's fucking awesome. And there's one version of it that is very concerning because it feels like maybe they're fucking around with the whole, you know, Buffalo Bill and the whole like
sure.
transgender, like equals horror. I feel like they might be dipping in that space a little bit. So maybe guys don't do that. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I want other people to watch it and tell me what they think because I'm
Okay.
really
Be there
turbulent.
eventually.
Yeah.
Us curmudgeon guys who wait for streaming or something will get there eventually.
Come on, guys. It's almost cheaper in the theater.
How close is your theater?
It's very close.
Oh, okay.
It's very close, and I have like the Cinemark whatever thing,
gotta
so
do the
it's
Cinemark.
very cheap for me to see these movies.
So I saw another Shudder, Raven's Hollow. You guys seen this one?
I watched about 40 minutes of it.
That
I
sounds
did
about
not.
what I should have watched.
Oh no.
It's I don't know, it's kind of a monster movie. They cast the lead guy is named Edward Poe, which really has nothing to do with I expected maybe they're going to do
It's got
some
Raven in the title.
so then there's sort of a Raven-esque creature in it, but
Right.
not really. It's more like
Yeah.
a pterodactyl.
Okay.
But I expected maybe that would get woven in somehow, but it's not. It's just like I forgot the movie, but the movie that named people like Joe Dante was one of the characters in the movie, and all these name dropped titles for people that have nothing to do with the story, but are to be funny.
Make your own movie. Stop
It
sitting on
was-
other people. Oh, is her last name Carpenter? Ooh, how cool. Fucking stop.
Carpenter and Graven, but I don't know. It was. It looked really good. The acting was fine. The performances were fine, but it just nothing. The story was just really well-trod storyline here,
Oh no.
and nothing really interesting done with it. If this had been a 1960s Hammer film, it might have been pretty cool and innovative. As a modern film, it's not. It's everything's well made with the story.
Man.
I think, like you, I went in thinking that there was going to be some kind of recognizable Edgar Allan Poe story that Edgar Poe experiences, and then that makes him write about it. Write about his experience or something like
It's
that.
like Dickens, but for Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Edgar Allan Poe in Love or something like that.
All right. But yeah, no, I didn't.
The opening sequence I thought was really good though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
that's
the
why I
intro-
stuck it out.
The introduction of the monster is kind of neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was.
Yeah, well, you can't win them all on Shudder.
Nope.
I'm sure there were a ton of people who liked it. It's a very glossy, slick-looking movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Okay, speaking of brand new on, let's see, was it Hulu or Prime? I watched My Best Friend's Exorcism.
Oh,
I think that's
okay.
Hulu. They're based on the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
The book is better, but
Yeah,
this is
it's a good
really
book.
close to it. And I kind of liked it. It's it's set in the 80s. It's a group of girls who have a girls' night in this little cabin. They're teenage girls.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they mess with a Ouija board and they do some LSD. And one of them ends up in this little haunted cabin area, or a couple of them do. And one of them comes out of there possessed.
Oh.
And
Cool.
her best friend is trying to figure out what to do about it. They go to I can't remember if they go to a Catholic school, but they have the bodybuilder Christians who show up and are doing all the things and breaking bricks for Jesus and all that.
Right. Yes.
And one of them recognizes that the girl is possessed,
Uh-huh.
and it becomes kind of it's comedic, very comedic in some points, where she has to kidnap her friend and have this guy who's not very good at doing exorcisms try and exorcise this demon. And I liked it. I didn't love it, but I did love the book, so I think I was expecting a little more.
The book is great. And they
Yeah.
did that fun. I don't own that one, but they did the version of the book that made it look like an old VHS tape
Yes.
from the era. It was,
Oh, that's cool.
it was fun. It's a good book.
Yeah. Grady Hendrix book.
I'll have to make a
So
note
here's
to
a
read.
quick insert. I guess we're on the other side of the spectrum for Raven's Hollow. It's 71 and 74 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, that's about probably where we would all land. I mean, if you and I were sitting with a group of horror people, we'd be the three people who didn't like the film.
There you go.
You're making assumptions about whether or not I'd like this movie I have not seen, but most likely I probably would not. So, well, I just caught up on Lower Decks, and I am
nice.
madly in love with that show. They went to Deep Space Nine,
Uh-huh.
and oh my god, I was probably the worst person to watch this with because the whole time I'm like, that's like the guy who like sits there and he dies and they have a funeral and they like have a little like painting of him later and that person like that's the baseball. They have this baseball team that they form later. And I'm just like going constantly. It was bad. It was really bad. But I loved the snot out of it. So I think anyone who is a Star Trek nerd, like it's like manna from heaven.
They
It's so
answered
good.
one of the great weird questions of the purpose of having a bar or something like that when you have replicators all over the entire ship with Quark's special replicator that he built.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's clever because, he did something to modify it so it could make things that nothing else could make.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And I do like that he like created a franchise as well. I was like, finally, way to go. And they got all the actors too. I was like, that's actually Quark. And that's actually Nerys. And yeah.
This reminds me to ask you, Vanessa. We all have a mutual friend, Seth M. Sherwood.
Yeah.
And he and I have been going back and forth privately on all of the mid-journey art and stable diffusion and stuff. But he posts some of his stuff in a different way than I do and mocks them up as possible TV shows that may have happened and everything. And one of them was a Star Trek show.
Oh, no, really?
That you said, well, I never knew about this. And I was like, I can't tell if she's joking or not because it was a Star Trek series that didn't make it off the air that starred Elvis and Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island. And I understood exactly what was going on, but I was wondering if you really thought that was a possibility.
I mean, come on. This shit happens all the damn time. I mean, like, I don't know anything about Elvis besides what I've seen in that one movie.
But you know everything about Star Trek.
That's why I was surprised. Because I was like, oh, well, Seth's a big nerd and he's smart. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Like, he must have caught. Oh, damn it. Like,
Wow.
I was like, oh.
Well done, Seth.
Yeah, he really got me. I did think the art was kind of weird. There was a couple of pieces that were posted that I was like, that seems like a weird piece of art for that era. But
well, so here's exactly what I was talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
He was able to post some images that looked like they were like TV guide type images and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're believable enough.
believe it or not, he is a professional writer.
Yes.
So me being, tricked by a professional writer making a professional sounding writing post. maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. I didn't know.
He and I were, messaging back and forth because we sent each other various images, and he says, I may have to apologize to Vanessa because
He sure does.
I think she took my post seriously, and I was like, please tell me where this post is so I can laugh emoji at it.
Oh no! Oh, Seth. I mean, yeah, he should really apologize to me about that. Because you know what, though, I'm not a huge Elvis fan, so I'm not like broken up about it. I was mostly like, oh, Elvis almost had an opportunity to be on Star Trek. That sounds like 1,000 very common Hollywood stories where 1,000 people almost did 1,000 things. So
there you go.
Yeah. I have so many feelings right now. It's really upsetting. Whatever, it's fine. I've got lower decks.
Yeah, which is great. I actually watch that sometimes going, I know there's a reference here I don't get.
Yes.
Maybe I should ask.
There was the one I did not get in that was I knew it was something, but the baddies from that episode, like I was like, I know I've seen you guys in fucking something, but I cannot remember which episode you're from. It doesn't matter.
They got plenty out
so
of it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about our films this week because I have a Star Trek reference in mind, believe it or not.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Well, the other one I watched, which I think was probably Shudder as well, Soul Survivor. You heard of this one from the 80s?
You are the second person to tell me they watched that this week, and I was like, this movie's been around for 40 fucking years. Why is everybody watching it again?
Well, because Shudder put it on, is my guess, as they added it. And I hadn't seen it before. So I'm watching this going, oh, well, boy, I know some filmmakers that saw this. I
haven't seen it since like 87 or something.
The basic storyline is there is a plane wreck and one person survives. And the rest of the movie, people keep showing up and following around trying to kill her.
But what were you saying? What filmmakers saw that?
There's another film where people die, supposed
Final
to die in a
Destination?
crash.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about like angles and
Oh
composition
no,
and stuff
no,
like that.
no,
Okay.
the storyline and it also has a lot. It follows. There's a lot of it follows to it with the way the people
Same with Smile.
go after her.
Oh,
Yeah,
weird. Interesting.
So I was watching it going, definitely Final Destination borrowed from this one. And you mentioned earlier about something you watched that had a person you didn't like in the role. I think it's Smile. And that's part of the problem with this movie.
Oh.
The sole survivor is somebody I'm going, maybe somebody else should have lived through that plane.
Yeah.
Because she is just neutral. She plays this weird neutrality almost through the whole film, which is like might have been a weird decision by the director or her to be. I'm supposed to be dead, so I'm going to be kind of dead inside or something. Maybe that was a choice, but
Yeah.
and she following her in the story made it a little less interesting because it's like I'm just watching the story. I'm not watching to see what happens to this hero in her journey because
Right.
I'm not invested. But
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, I remember not. I mean, I don't remember much of the movie except for the plot, and I remember not being impressed though way back then.
That's too bad. That sounds like a ripping plot.
Well,
That's
part of the reason I
awesome.
watched this, a few posts I saw people just going off on how much they liked it. I'm like, oh well, I'll check it out. And I've noticed that a lot online. Oh my God, I figured out this secret thing in this movie. It's just like this movie here. Isn't that cool? And then they like the movie more specifically because they found some hint to another movie in it.
Interesting.
Well, cool. Okay, how about we take a break, guys, and then when we come back, we are talking Universal horror.
Evil looms over Turtlevania, and only one rat can stop it through the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Universal Monsters. It's Master Splinter as Van Helsing. Observe the hunter's outfit with hat, glasses, gloves, and maroon leather jacket. His weaponry, which includes a hunter's knife, crossbow, and vampire stakes, ready to encounter all the children of the night. But you see, Master Splinter Van Helsing doesn't hunt the four monster turtles. Instead, he unites them and trains them to fight a greater evil. Be ready with the all-new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Universal Monsters Master Splinter as Van Helsing. Comes with everything you see here. What a picture-perfect family of fright.
The winner of the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival streaming ticket is
Audrey S.
We have returned. Eric, I know that this was your subgenre pick,
Yes.
but for reasons that will become obvious later, we're going to switch things up, and I'm going to start this discussion.
Sounds good because I know why.
And that is the only reason why.
That's right.
So I wanted to choose something that wasn't considered one of the main big classics. And there was one I had seen a while ago that I remember liking, and I decided to watch it again. And I was right. I liked it. It is called Werewolf of London.
We must seize the only specimen of the Mariposa plant in England. That flower is the only known antidote for werewolfery.
A very interesting folk tale, but of no value to the police.
I warn you, sir, unless you secure this plant, there'll be an epidemic that will turn London into a shambles.
When my experiments are completed, I will show their results to the entire world. Not before.
Remember this, Dr. Glendon. The werewolf instinctively seeks to kill the thing it loves best.
You brought this on me that night in Tibet.
Sorry I can't share this with you.
I have something cool to talk about with the howl in this movie.
Oh.
This is from 1935. Budget of $195,000. Box office was not available, but in the notes that I was reading, it was called a disappointment.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes critics have it at 77%, and the audience has it at 45%. It is directed by Stuart Walker, who has 12 credits, including Manhattan Moon, Great Expectations, and The Eagle and the Hawk. And it was written by John Colton, who has 33 credits, including The Invisible Ray, The She-Wolf, and Forbidden Hours.
Oh, fancy.
I wonder in the 40s what was forbidden about these hours.
A small glass of wine.
Sure.
There
yeah.
you go, yes.
Starring Henry Hull, 115 credits. He was in The Great Gatsby, Thunder Over the Plains, and Master of the World. Have you guys seen Master of the World with Vincent Price?
Mm-mm.
It's a really cool, fun little movie. Also starring Warner Oland. He has 97 credits. He is an Asian actor. He played Charlie Chan in all the Charlie Chan movies of the 40s. He played Fu Manchu in all the Fu Manchu movies of the 20s.
Oh, well, there you
At
go.
least he's an Asian actor who played Fu Manchu.
Yeah. And he was even in the movie The Jazz Singer, which is, the first talkie. So kind of cool. Also in this is Valerie Hobson. She had 49 credits. She was in Great Expectations with Henry Hull. She was also in Shadows of the Underworld, and a title I have not seen but I love, Murder Will Out.
Murder Will Out?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Have you guys seen Werewolf of London?
I think so.
Okay.
It's
No,
universal.
100% not.
Universal, so.
Okay, so
But
we
I'm not
meet
sure.
Wilfred Glendon.
Ooh.
Not exactly your hero
Glendon.
name, but that's who he is in 1935. Wilfred Glendon. He's wealthy and world-renowned English botanist who has journeyed to Tibet in search of the extremely rare plant that only blooms in moonlight. I'm sure that they told me what that plant was, but I apparently did not write it down.
Was it Wolfsbane?
No. This is not a real plant.
Oh, okay.
I wonder, I didn't do enough research to know if any plant actually blooms in moonlight, but it does not seem like something that could be possible to me.
Mm.
So while he's there, he finds the plant, but he is attacked and bitten by a werewolf. Although it seems strange to me at first, but then I started doing research. They act like, they have no idea what this thing is that has bitten him and all of this stuff. And it's kind of interesting once you get into it. So when he arrives back home in London, he is approached by another botanist. He's got this big party going on, and this thing is amazing because it's just a collection of all of his plants, and they are the creepiest, craziest plants in the world. They'll, they feed a frog to this one plant and everything. It's just amazing. It's all puppetry and everything. Really cool looking plants. I loved this whole scene. This other botanist who shows up, Dr. Yogami, who is Warner Oland, he claims to have met Wilfred in Tibet while also seeking the plant. But Wilfred's like, I don't remember you. And he's like, well, we met at night. And,
Oh, no.
and I'm like, this is an awfully big clue to give away so early. But anyhow, Yogami was also there searching for this elusive plant. And they both talk about the plant's mythology. And they both got a sample of the plant. Wilfred isn't able to get his to bloom no matter what, and he even has this artificial moonlight lamp, and he's pointing it at this plant, nothing will happen. Yogami says that his plant died before he got it back to London, but he's telling him how important it is to get these because this plant can prevent werewolfism.
Oh, snap.
And Wilfred kind of blows him off and says, I stopped believing in that kind of stuff when I was about 8. And Yogami says, well, I happen to know that there are at least 2 werewolves in London as we speak. And I'm like, boy, these hints are so hard and heavy. But there's also something about it that made me just love it. Because Wilfred's just like, no idea what you're talking about. He also says that, and this is very important, he warns Wilfred that the bite of a werewolf will cause a person to become a werewolf. And, here's the plant, adding that the Marifasa is a temporary antidote for the disease.
Oh.
And Wilfred is like, whatever, I don't believe you, but nice to meet you, stop by anytime. And then, of course, he continues working on his stuff. And it's interesting. Under the moon lamp, the artificial moonlight lamp that he has, he starts turning into a werewolf. The arms on
That's so good.
the hairs on his arms start sprouting and everything. And he's like, what the fuck? But he's also seeing that his artificial lamp is finally making the plant work. So he kind of takes like a petal from this plant and he rubs it on his arm and the hair goes away. Oh. So it's like, oh, look at this. It's all true.
Wow.
But the next time he's in the full moon, I wish I had done some spacing when I printed this out. Let's see. First full moon. Okay, the transformation comes again with the next moon. And this happens to coincide with a party that he's with his wife at. And she's also met up with a former childhood sweetheart of hers and everything. But he's starting to turn into a werewolf, so he can't really do anything about this childhood sweetheart thing. So he races back to the laboratory to get the blossoms to stop the transformation. But we find out that Dr. Yogami has snuck in there first. He is a werewolf, as you might guess. Not only that, he's one of the 2 werewolves in London he was talking about.
God.
And not only that, he's the werewolf that bit Wilfred in
This is
Tibet.
all shocking information.
Yes. So he's stolen the only 2 blossoms from the plant, which means that Wilfred can't stop his transformations now, right? Mm-hmm. So I love the direction this takes because when Wilfred turns into a werewolf, he is a wolf man and he dons a hat and a trench coat.
Yes.
And it makes for a really striking looking monster that I absolutely want to steal the look for because he looks like a wolf. Mm-hmm. You can still see it's him under the makeup and everything. But he literally takes the time to put on a trench coat and a hat and goes out to murder.
That's so good. Oh.
So anyway, he dons his hat coat and ends up killing this innocent girl. And afterwards, he's just consumed by guilt. And so he's pushing his wife away from him to keep her safe. And he's attempting to lock himself away whenever the moon comes out, even going to lengths of like going to a different town. But the problem is the werewolf in him is smarter than he is about itself. So it knows how to get out of every trap he's set for himself and stuff like that. He escapes and keeps killing. So when Glendon finally realizes that Yogami is the other werewolf, there is, of course, a lot of werewolf-on-werewolf violence. Mm-hmm. And then after defeating his enemy, you think that that's going to be kind of the finish. But no, he goes to the house in search of his wife because as Yogami told us in the beginning of the film, I love this too, the werewolf instinctively seeks to destroy that which it loves the most.
Ah.
Oh, my.
So
damn.
He's going after his wife. And it's got a nice, solid little ending. I am not going to tell you about it, but it's probably not that big of a stretch to figure out how this ends. But I will say, I think I might just like this movie a little bit more than The Wolfman. So, some trivia on this. This is the movie that came up with everything we know about werewolves. And it made it up completely. The idea that being bitten by a werewolf makes one a werewolf, that's from this movie. The first time that it ever happened. That a werewolf changes under the full moon is from this movie. And that werewolves were wolf/man hybrids that could walk on their hind legs and everything, that is from this movie. All of this stuff was completely made up. In folklore, one becomes a werewolf deliberately by practicing witchcraft and can change into a wolf at any time desired, a full wolf, not this half-human wolf thing. However, this film's mythology and that of others after it heavily influenced pop culture views of werewolves to the point that these are now regarded as official mythology. Oddly enough, the concept of a werewolf changing in the light of the full moon was dropped in Universal's next such film, The Wolfman, only to be revived in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1943. So it's
inconsistent.
They're still trying to figure out their mythology with these films, and I love that. I love that it was that recent. The opening scene in Tibet was filmed at Vasquez Rocks, north of Los Angeles. It is very, very familiar looking to anyone who is a Star Trek fan. It is the rock outcropping from where Captain Kirk rolls a boulder down trying to kill the Gorn, in Star Trek, the original series. Arena.
There we go. Yeah. Did they have a big boulder in this one?
This one will offend Vanessa. When Wilfred is conversing with the Tibetan villagers in the beginning of the film, the actors playing the villagers are actually speaking Cantonese, not Tibetan, and Hole is just muttering gibberish.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I pulled this one out for that response, Vanessa.
Oh, I mean, like, it doesn't offend me personally. I just feel really awful. I mean, what a terrible choice to make as a human being.
There you go. Remember when I said I had some information on the werewolf howl? The howl in this movie is awesome. It's really creepy and everything. And it turns out that the werewolf howl used in this film is a combination of Henry Hole's own voice howling and a recording of an actual timber wolf. The result is generally thought to have a far more realistic result than in any subsequent werewolf films, including the Wolfman. That's my movie, Werewolf of London. Vanessa, I'm really curious what your movie is.
Well, since you really prefer your film to The Wolfman, it's very fitting that I am doing 1941's The Wolfman.
Johnny Williams was killed?
Yes. Find something?
Animal tracks.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
Oh, don't hand me that. You're just wasting your time.
The wolf bit you, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he did. You wouldn't want to run away with a murderer, would you?
Oh, Larry, you're not. You know you're not.
I killed Bela. I killed Richardson. If I stay here any longer, you can't tell who'll be next.
Never heard of it.
Shocking. You know what? I have not seen hardly any Universal movies, so I have a lot of catching up to do. So I am choosing.
Was this the first time?
This is the first time I've seen this movie.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm gonna explore a few things that I've been waiting to check out. So this film is pretty well regarded, 90% Rotten Tomatoes from critics, 80% from audience. People love it because, of course, they do. The budget was $180,000, and it actually was a huge success. It made just over $1 million from what I could find in the research, but these numbers are pretty hard to dig up.
Yeah.
So it was directed by George Wagner. He's done 60 films, including films like Man-Made Monster and Frisco Sal, lots of TV like Batman TV series, Man from U.N.C.L.E., and 77 episodes of Sunset Strip. Written by Kurt Swedmack, who's been, he wrote 81 different things. He's a German.
That kind of sounded like you were talking in the Red Room in Twin Peaks when you said that name. That was really cool.
It was unintentional. He was originally hired, this German writer was originally hired as an extra for Fritz Lang's Metropolis because he was doing a story on him as a reporter. And then he kind of fell into the world of film. He's written Invisible Woman, Invisible Agent, Invisible Man Returns, a lot of invisible. I Walk with a Zombie, Frankenstein Meets Wolfman, Son of Dracula, Lady of the Monster, and the Monster, House of Frankenstein, and Bride of Gorilla. Starring Lon Chaney Jr., who has been in 195 things, but apparently never thought of himself as very famous, which is interesting. He's the son of the silent film star Lon Chaney, who played Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. Found fame in Of Mice and Men. Went on to be in movies like High Noon, a lot of monster movies, and was the only actor to play all of the monster versions of himself in the Universal Pictures. So anytime they had the Wolfman out, it was always Lon Chaney Jr. Also starring Claude Rains, who plays his definite father, Sir John Talbot. I'm sorry, he's like 4 feet shorter than him, and he's British. They're not related.
Also,
It's
he's
so
got to be
stupid.
close in age to him.
Probably. They're not. I mean, they made his hair all white, so I don't know, but so dumb. He's been in 78 things, including The Invisible Man, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Casablanca, Adventures of Robin Hood, Now Voyager, Notorious, Family Opera, and 5 episodes of Hitchcock's Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and of course, Bela Lugosi. 115 credits. He's in Dracula, Black Cat, Island of the Lost Souls, Glenn or Glenda, and of course, Plan 9 from Outer Space was his final film. So, yeah, this story is pretty on the nose. We start out with a highlighted dictionary definition of lycanthropy, which says werewolfism, a disease of the mind in which human beings imagine they are a wolfman. According to an old legend which persists in certain localities, the victims actually assume the physical characteristics of the animal. There's a small village near Talbot Castle, wonder where he's going to go, which still claims to have had gruesome experiences with a supernatural creature. The sign of the werewolf is a 5-pointed star. Larry returns to his father's estate in Wales. So Larry is our main character. And in Wales, I'm glad I looked it up because I spent most of the film trying to figure out where the hell they were because his dad is English. Everyone else is American, except for a few randos who are also English. And I'm like, and Larry is American as fuck. So I was like, I don't know where I am. And all the street signs are like German. Like they all have like the hanging German, like old timey style. So I was like, I'm sorry. This person has never been to Wales. Or America, it seems. So, after he returns to his father's estate in Wales after the death of his brother, who died in a hunting accident. He's super estranged from his family. It's been 18 years since he's been there, but his father greets him with open arms and is like, "Hey, you haven't been here a long time, but I love you. Come on in." Except he's British, and he's like, "Cool. I'm really tall, and I will stand near you." His father is super into science, but he's also like running the town. I don't really understand how these roles work, but he's like some estate land hierarchy guy. So everyone's like, he's like the king, but not of the town. Anyway, so everyone looks up to him, but he's really into science as I think a hobby. And he asks Larry to help him with this big telescope up in the attic, which is the coolest attic I've ever seen. It's got these huge glass panels. And of course, like Larry does not care about the actual looking through the telescope, but he's really into building it because he's good with his hands. He's a working man. And his father's like, "Yeah, take a peek." And this is, considering the size of the telescope, this is the crappiest telescope ever. All you can see is across the street in like a wide shot. I'm like, you guys, this is a big telescope for such a poor view, but it does mean he has the perfect view of being able to see the hot girl who lives above the antique shop. He gets really smitten really quickly and immediately goes over there. Enter Gwen, the beautiful antique shop runner person. So he goes in there, he starts to flirt with her, and he says, "I want to buy a pair of earrings." And she's like, "Oh, what kind?" And he's like, "I want these ones with this crescent moon." And odd, I wonder, and a little sparkly blah, blah, blah. And she's like, "We don't have anything like that here." And he's like, "Yeah, but you do in your room." And she's like, "Huh?" Not creeped out at all. This girl does not have the correct instincts. And he starts describing different things in her room. And she's like, "How do you know this?" And he's like, "I'm psychic, baby." And she's like, "Okay." And he's like, I guess I'm going to buy this cane. And she shows him different canes to buy. And he's still flirting with her. And he's like, yeah, how about this one? And he grabs one with a silver wolf head. And she explains to him about werewolves. I should point out that this film spends so much time explaining what werewolves are. I think across it, no less than 6 times is the werewolf explained. And 3 times, the exact same poem is read about werewolves in a 15-minute slot. So this is all about telling and not showing. This film very heavily is into that. So anyway, he asks her out finally, and he buys the cane. It's got a silver head. That's not relevant. And she says no, which means yes. So it's fine. He shows up for her at her work at 8 p.m. for the date, and she has brought along a friend named Jenny. They decide, he's a little disappointed by this, but decide to go off and get their fortunes read by this gypsy who's come into town. Gwen and Larry, of course, peel off as soon as they get to the fortune teller as Jenny is getting her fortune read, because basically they want to go flirt in the woods. It's all dark and spooky, and there's a lot of mist, but they don't seem to mind because they're busy staring in each other's eyes. And that's when Gwen tells Larry that she's engaged. So that's good for him. But obviously sparks are flying. Meanwhile, Bela Lugosi, who plays Bella the Gypsy, reads the fortune for Jenny, and he sees on her palm a pentagram. He then yells at her to run home. And sure enough, she's like spooked out, starts running through the woods, and all of a sudden she's off screen screaming. So Larry then takes off after her and finds this big wolf that we only kind of see the shadows of and beats it to death with his silver cane. He, of course, gets hurt in the scramble. He gets bitten by this thing, and he ends up kind of all torn up and laying on the ground when the gypsy woman comes up and helps Gwen basically get him back to the house. The next day, it is discovered that the fortune teller, Bela Lugosi, is dead. And there is no dead wolf.
Bela Lugosi is dead?
Bela Lugosi is dead.
Wow.
It's not, in fact, the wolf. In fact, there is no wolf. And the scar that he says he got from the bite is gone. Things start to get weird for him as the gypsy woman warns him that basically, yo, you're going to be a wolf now. You killed my son. He was a wolf. That's okay. He was really tortured, but I'm worried for you, and it's going to get bad. And here's a special pendant to wear around your neck to help you. He's like, psh, you're so full of crap. And then he gives the pendant to Gwen because he's like, this is for your safety, and I'm still flirting with you. Meanwhile, the whole town starts gossiping about him and how these murders have only started when he showed up. And of course, Jenny's mother is especially pissed at him because instead of hanging out with her daughter and making sure she was okay, he was off flirting with an engaged woman in the woods. How inappropriate. So the next night, of course, funnily enough, he becomes full wolf. We know this because his legs get very furry. And then he's in full clothes. I love that he still has button-up shirt and his pants with his belt on, and he's like stalking around in the woods. Like, dude, okay, this is the silliest shit ever, but that's okay. It's, cool. And he goes off and he murders a gravedigger, and then he walks around super awkwardly in his clothes. The next morning, he sees a bunch of muddy wolf prints all over his room, and a hunting party is formed to go and kill this wolf that is on the loose, killing all these people. He then starts to kind of feel like maybe something is actually happening, and the hunting party goes out to the woods and starts setting up all these traps. Next night, he goes out and gets caught in a trap and then decides to fall asleep because that's what you do when you're caught in a trap. Gypsy woman shows up and helps him. She does a little spell on him. He transforms back into being a person. And she's like, yeah, you gotta, this is bad. You gotta be better at this. And he's like, oh, I'm so confusing my life. So stumbles back home, and he decides he's got to run away. He does not want to be hurting people, and he especially does not want to hurt Gwen, which when he holds her hand sees the pentagram, which means she is the next to die. So which is kind of sort of explained to us, but not really. So he asks his father to please, for the love of God, send him away. And his dad instead is like, dude, this is all in your head. Get over it. I'm British and I'm proper, and you need to get your shit together. So he ties him up to a chair and locks him in his room and says, you'll be fine. I have to go. I've got a big, exciting thing to do. And he's like, could you at least take my silver cane if you're going to go out in the woods? So, of course, that night, should he escape again? My God, I think he just might. Will the hunting party be out there also looking for him? I think they might. Will the hunting party include his father? I think it does. Is Gwen there for literally no reason whatsoever? She is. She of course is running around in the woods for some unknown reason, and the dad is like, there's literally men with guns and it is foggy and you need to go home. And she's like, no, but it's important I find Larry. And instead she is caught by the big wolf, and as he's about to rip her throat out, she passes out, and that's fine. And then his father comes and beats him to death with a cane. You guys have seen this movie, so you know. He turns back into a human, and everyone sees that it was true. He was the wolf all along.
It was beauty that killed the beast.
different film. Yeah, this is a film. It just spends so much time telling you over and over and over again what's up, and that's extremely infuriating. I was so frustrated trying to figure out where things were taking place between the English accents, the American accents, the German shops, and the Roma visiting town. It was very confusing. It was beautiful. It is a gorgeous movie. I love the sets, the foggy trees, the moors, which is fine. It's Wales, whatever.
It's not actually a set. I just figured all the shit was shot on a set somewhere.
It is a set.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is.
It's not taking place any place. You're good.
I know. It's fine. You're right. I shouldn't think of the fact that they're definitely not anything like that necessarily. I mean, maybe Wales has one. Who knows? It's fine. So, but it's beautiful. It is really gorgeous. The actual monster makeup, I think it's neat in that they shadow him in such a way that there's always shadow lines covering his face, so you don't get the full on like this guy looks ridiculous effect. It's definitely, it feels a little goofy, but you know, it's a film from the 40s and they're figuring their shit out. As Kelly mentioned, this is only their second werewolf film, so maybe it'll get better.
And from what Kelly was saying, only the second piece about these kind of werewolves in this form. No previous books, nothing to draw from. Probably why they felt the need to explain everything.
Totally, yeah. And there's a little bit out there. Like there is a book that existed that set up a little bit of this, but I'll get into that in the trivia. But cool. Most of the stuff was invented by Kelly's film. There was a good quote though from his dad, who's yelling at the police who are trying to figure this murder out. He says, "You police are always in such a hurry, as if dead men don't have all of eternity." Which I was like, very good. I like that.
Nice.
It was a little frustrating to watch how tortured Larry was through the whole thing. He just runs around being like, I'm confused. I'm a man's man and I don't understand this witchcraft. It's kind of silly. I wish the telescope was better. This isn't the best werewolf movie I've seen. However, it's got a lot of cool things going on with it in general. It is very pretty. And I do wish the howl, though, was sunk to his mouth at all. He just randomly stands there off on the side and you hear a big ow, and he's just stood there with his lips shut. I'm like, is that you? Is there someone else out there? Is there another wolf?
Ventriloquist wolf.
I gotta ask you, did you just conjugate sink, S-Y-N-C, as sunk in the past tense?
Maybe.
It would be synced.
Well, you know, look, I'm in post-production. We don't get to talk to anybody.
Oh, all right.
No one tells us what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have thought, so a little bit of trivia. Bela Lugosi actively campaigned for the lead role. Everyone's going to know all this already. Anyway, Bela Lugosi actively campaigned for the lead of this role and ended up playing a minor supporting role. Universal originally planned to have this project be starred by its normal superstar Boris Karloff. And then instead, Dick Foran was originally cast, but he was replaced 1 week before filming began. So this was a real switcheroo of who was going to end up playing this role. Jack P. Pierce achieved the Wolfman's iconic makeup primarily with rubber nose and yak hair. And he singed a curling iron attached to yak hair was singed with a curling iron, which was attached to Lon Chaney Jr.'s face, arms, and legs with spirit gum. It took 6 hours to apply and 3 hours to get off. He does not go through the facial transformation until pretty much the very, very end of the film. And it's kind of a backwards transformation. It's just really his feet that goes through it. So, but when he does show the time lapse, it takes 10 hours to shoot because they have to like shoot a little. He goes off and they put like something about glass plates over his face that they paint on to figure out like where the makeup was at what point. And then it's kind of interesting. Wow. The wolf that Larry Talbot fights originally was actually Lon Chaney Jr.'s own German Shepherd. The Wolfman battled a bear in one scene, but unfortunately, the bear ran away during filming. What few
I'm
scenes?
free!
Bye! I don't know where it went. They filmed this in a studio.
It's
Where
a
are
bear
these-
shaped hole in a wall.
Movie.
Exactly, like the Kool-Aid Man. What few scenes were filmed were put in the theatrical trailer, but not in the film itself. Unfortunately for Evelyn Anchor, she had a pretty awful time filming this movie. She plays the love interest Gwen. So not only did she like get chased by the same bear that escaped up a ladder and had to wait there until she could be rescued by an electrician, she also fainted in the misty ground scene during the fog bit because the fog fumes were so intense. And she passed out. Unfortunately, no one knew she passed out, nor did they know where she passed out. And she was unnoticed by the director and the crew who were concentrating on another aspect of the scene. She remained there unnoticed until the studio technician began breaking down the set that evening.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Yeah. She also had difficulty working with Lon Chaney Jr., who was seriously pissed that she was given his dressing room. The studio was punishing him by giving her the dressing room because he vandalized the studio property while drunk. The actor would constantly irritate her, nicknaming her Shankers for the term shanking, aka the homemade knife-like weapon fashioned in prison. For being a backstabber. And while playing, he would constantly play juvenile practical jokes on her, like sneak up on her in full makeup and scare her. So he's kind of a dick from everything I was reading. I did not like the sound of this guy. In Kurt Soidmak's original script for the film, whether or not Lawrence Talbot really underwent physical transformation to become a werewolf was really just, or if it was actually in his mind, was left super ambiguous. But when it became a official screen, we're going to definitely do this, they went ahead and said, nope, we need the audience to know what's happening, and we're not going to leave anything vague. The script of The Wolfman was also influenced by his experiences with Nazi Germany. He was living a normal life in Germany, only to, of course, be thrown into chaos and have himself run on the run from the Nazis who took control. Much like Larry Talbot finds his normal life thrown into chaos and himself on the run once he's turned into the werewolf. But on the flip side, it also works both ways because the Wolfman himself can be seen as a metaphor for the Nazis, an otherwise good man who's transformed into a vicious killing animal who knows his next victim will be by the sign of a pentagram, a star, on his victim's hands. Many modern myths of werewolves originated, of course, from Kelly's film, but two from this one, which was the bite transferring from one werewolf to another to create a new werewolf.
Nope, that's from this movie.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay, well, IMDb lies to me. And being able to kill them with a silver bullet.
Silver definitely came from the Wolfman.
Okay. However, some of this really was all based on this novel, Beast of Nevadan, from the late 19th century, where it set up quite a few of these initial kind of things. But Werewolf of London really went through and made a lot more of them up. Hollywood then, of course, invented the idea of a werewolf being immortal so that it could bring the character back for sequel after sequel. The cathedral Larry and his father attend is the set of Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was in Universal's backlot for 20 years. Lon Chaney, already said that. It premiered 2 days after Pearl Harbor, and the studio was afraid that it was going to be panned since it was a horror film, and they even cut it from being a double bill, which they wanted to put it next to with The Mad Doctor of Market Street. Instead, the film became Universal Studios' top grosser of 1942. And it produced many sequels, including Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, a remake, of course, with Benicio del Toro, and eventually a reboot for Universal's Dark Universe, where Alex Kurtzman and Chris Morgan were attached. Dwayne Johnson was going to appear as the Wolfman, but then that fell apart. And now Ryan Gosling has been cast as a Wolfman, maybe. Currently, Lee Vanell, who did the Invisible Man, the most recent Invisible Man movie, which was awesome, is currently set to work on it, and it's in negotiations with Jason Blum as producer. So,
Frankenstein, Wolf's the Meat Man.
Love it.
That's a very different style film, I would think.
There's a lot going on in
Something
there.
from the 70s, maybe. Experimental period of...
I just felt like saying that.
All right, yeah, I don't have a wolf. There's no wolf in mine. It might be a dog.
Oh, you can't join our club then.
I'm a loner. So the film I talk about is 1943, and the Universal's Phantom of the Opera.
Here is all you've ever wanted in entertainment in one superb show. Here is matchless story, suspenseful, terrifying, never so thrillingly presented. Here in breathtaking technicolor is superb spectacle and splendor and romance. Here is a chorus of 100 voices, a ballet of 100 dancers, a cast of 1,000, starring Nelson Eddy in his most vigorous performance, lovely Susanna Foster, and Claude Rains in the most coveted role of the year as the Phantom of the Opera.
My music! You've stolen it! You've stolen my music!
Which is one I had not seen.
I have to admit I have not seen this one either.
Yeah, it sort of sits on the edge of their... I guess we'll include this one.
Right.
Especially after watching it. The release... Rotten Tomatoes has it at 76 critics, 77 crowd, so pretty good. Well budgeted for the time at $1.5 million. Did well,
cow.
but...
1.5 million.
Yeah. So I'm curious if that's fully accurate, but it could be, because that's not outside the realm of possibilities for a film budget at that time. But it's on the bleeding edge of high budget.
I mean, mine was, what did I say it was? 195,000?
Yeah, mine was 180.
This is pretty elaborate.
Wow.
This is really a really elaborate film. It's directed by Arthur Lubin, who's done Mr. Ed, Maverick, Hold That Ghost, and Spider-Woman Strikes Back, plus 95 or 85 other films and TV shows.
I really want to see Hold That Ghost.
Writer Eric Taylor, who's written The Spider-Woman Strikes Back and Son of Dracula, The Black Cat. And also writer Samuel Hoffenstein, who worked on Laura, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Wizard of Oz, is uncredited. Hans Jacoby, who was The Ship of the Dead, several Tarzan films, and The Land of Smiles. And, of course, Gaston Leroux, who wrote the original book. Also starring in this film was Nelson Eddy. You might know him from The Girl of the Golden West or The Desert Song and a variety of other stuff. Suzanne Foster, who's in Detour, Top Man, and The Hard-Boiled Canary. Claude Rains, heard of him a little bit probably, Casablanca, The Invisible Man, Robin Hood movies, now Voyager. He had a decent career. So, you're probably all familiar with this film because of a Broadway musical more than anything else, I would think at this time. Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom.
You mean the one I had on my like CD player that I walked around with in high school and had on loop constantly? Yes.
Yeah, just like my wife.
Oh, where?
It was very much like that.
Oh.
But this was one of the few Universal horror movies in color in the early years. So it was, which could also lead to that budget we were talking about. Start the film with a performance in the Opera House, and Christine is on stage in the chorus, basically, and her loved one returns from a trip. So, of course, being the 40s, she runs off stage to greet him instead of staying for her curtain calls. It's a very elaborate song, and they play the whole thing. And it's just like, this did not bode well for me as far as the movie goes, because this ain't Andrew Lloyd Webber music, man.
Right.
It's like, woof. But
not a good opera.
Yes. And of course, her boyfriend on the side is kind of like, well, this has been fun for you for the last 2 years. Now time to quit. And she's like, no. So, that was a nice difference that you might expect from the way those often went in that time period. But she also gets in trouble by the conductor, the crowd, a couple other people, like fans that come up and say, why did you do your curtain call? Now we've got Henri Clédon, played by Claude Rains. So he is going to eventually become the Phantom. This is the first film I remember seeing of Phantom of the Opera where he is not the Phantom.
Oh, whoa.
It starts with him being...
Like a normie?
Yeah. It starts with him being... he's a violinist in the orchestra and is writing the composition that eventually leads to the trouble he has. But so the movie's going around without having the Phantom yet available.
That's interesting.
And then we've got another scene of men telling her that she needs to ditch any man in her life so she can sing properly, because you can't do both things well.
Oh my God.
Don't I know it?
You have to pick one or the other. He already does have the obsession with Christine, though. As the violinist there, he gets fired and they're like, well, you've saved lots of money. You've made lots of money over your lifetime. You're fine. But he doesn't have any money because he's been secretly paying for her voice lessons. So he is already well and gone obsessed with her, even though he's not the Phantom yet. So he then tries to sell the piece, which of course, just like you see in the Phantom movies, the guy ends up stealing and not going to pay him for it. So he gets in a fight with him and gets acid thrown on his face. For some reason, this office in a publishing house has some kind of thing going on that they have a bin of acid sitting around.
I mean, that's how publishing works.
I'm not sure that's how OSHA works.
But he did kill the guy. So I guess he already got a little bit of revenge.
Woot.
Man, they jam a bunch of stuff in one scene with people complaining about Henri committing the murder, people stealing stuff, a ghost in the opera, and finally one of the guys yells, "My master key has been stolen. Now someone will have access to every room in the opera." Like, who could that have been? The love triangle is now set up between her returning soldier buddy, who's now a police officer, and her leading man on the stage, kind of leading man. He's sort of, I think he's kind of a leading man, but he's also sort of involved in the opera. His role is kind of ambiguous, but they throw the silly humor bits into this one, with the two of them going back and forth with each other and please, no, you go out the door first. No, I go out the door. And then they run into each other in the door.
Hijinks.
Exactly.
Hilarious.
They ensued. But it's actually kind of fun, and it fits. This is probably the least horror film from Universal's early movies. Again, let me reiterate, the music from Andrew Lloyd Webber's is much better as they return to another song. And but this is the one where she makes her debut because of the lady getting sick and all that. And of course, she's spectacular. Blows the house away, and everybody's like, wow! But Phantom's not thrilled with that one. Kind of like, you should sing for me. And
sing for me, my
There you go.
angel.
That's right. He doesn't do that, though. He doesn't make it that cool. The mask is kind of different than the mask you're used to, that half mask that Lon Chaney used and then Andrew Lloyd Webber used. This is like a Batman cowl almost. It's about down to just above his mouth, and it covers both sides of his face. And of course, while they're worried about catching him, they're setting up the thing to catch the guy, and we're going to have policemen wandering around, and the head of the police department goes and all these Secret Service guys, these men undercover, he's going to go greet all of them. And then on stage, they've got a bunch of masked people to watch the stage. But guess what? There's 3 or 4 matching masks to what the Phantom wore. What could happen? And boy, the other set of masks, those are not going to show up nowadays. They're doing something with, looks like a Genghis Khan story. I don't know the opera at all. I don't know if it's original to this or if there really is a Genghis Khan opera out there. But all the white guys are wearing masks that are, shall we say, have a certain aesthetic in the design and coloring of the mask that doesn't really look quite right.
Oh, no.
Let's see. This is what year? 1943.
43.
Oh, we're at war with Japan.
Uh-huh.
Shocking.
Exactly, yes. And that shows in the way these things are designed. So like if you've ever seen the old Warner Brothers cartoons,
Yes.
when they show the Japanese fighter pilots and stuff, it kind of looks that direction. I mean, it's really like, oh, wow. But I did notice that they're doing a piece earlier on the show. I forgot to mention that one of the pieces they do is from Don Giovanni and Mozart. That one I know for some reason. But of course, the plan doesn't exactly the way they think it's going to go. And they do the chandelier drop, which is really interesting in how it's shot. And that it looked like they must have just had done a budget of about... The chandelier is elaborate and falls and looks fine, but when it lands, they kind of show aftermath, but it's only like not quite half of the chandelier, and it's the same exact shot every time. And when they show what should be the other side of the chandelier, it's cropped out. So I'm like, I must have just built a small portion of this and had everybody running around going, ah! But seems a relatively violent version of it because it falls right on the crowd in the middle of the performance, so it's packed. And you can see where the money is spent in this film. The costuming is impressive and incredibly well done. Like I said, it's in Technicolor, so it looks a little weird. Technicolor remastered is sheeny. This was Blu-ray level, so it's...
Did it release as black and white and then later become technical?
No, this was released in color in its original run. Overall, and then... It's Phantom of the Opera. You pretty much know how it ends, but the staging at the end goes back to where they do a nice twist with Christine's character, and the 2 goofy guys that are courting her kind of end up being one of the more entertaining parts of the movie because they've got at least 3 scenes together where they play off each other and are obviously having a lot of fun. And the movie ends on a joke of the 2 of them.
Oh my God.
So whoever was putting the movie together goes, yeah, well, this is kind of the best part. But it's a fun film. It's entertaining. It was not one I'm like, well, could have skipped this. It is not done as a scary movie. The reveal of the Phantom is not anything really disturbing. It's there and she goes, and all that stuff, but it's not like the Lon Chaney one, which was incredibly well done, or some subsequently one. Certainly not like the 1980s version.
Right, with Robert Englund.
Yeah. That one's really violent if you haven't seen it. Taglines. In flaming Technicolor. It will live in your memory forever. The picture has everything. Romance in the shadow of sinister suspense. Music that mounts to thrilling rapture. Suspense. Opera with death at every performance.
Oh.
Awesome.
Which it doesn't technically have, but sounds good. Mammoth spectacle. Spectral terror. A story the world can never forget. Becomes the most lavish romantic spectacle of our time. Let's see. How many
Really
more of
selling
these
it.
there are? Okay, there's one more. It's a short one. Thrill 2, the crashing of the gigantic chandelier, phantoms crumbling catacombs of horror, ravishing beauty at a madman's mercy, terror as the phantom is unmasked, stampede of panic, stricken thousands.
Whoa.
And there's
thousands.
What's that?
Stricken.
Yes.
So many.
there's half your poster.
Yeah, no kidding.
Originally, the movie was actually considered to be a comedy. They're going to have Abbott and Costello in it.
Love it.
That would have been
which
amazing.
tracks to the two characters that have all the comedy scenes.
Oh.
I'm guessing they would have made their parts bigger and had those two guys play against each other. But also considered casting Lon Chaney Jr. because his dad made the movie so famous. And kind of sounds like the little bit I was able to read, they're like, he's kind of a dick. So they decided not to
He was
cast
also
him.
just a schlubby guy, too.
Yeah.
He's like
He is
enormous.
the most unlikely leading man.
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised. I was like, are you like going to have this guy because he's so tall and he's going to be a formidable Wolfman? No, he's just tall in slacks as the Wolfman. He doesn't look like, they don't use his imposing presence.
True.
Anyway.
The original script had Christine's father, who has abandoned her and her mother in order to pursue a music career. But they decided to get rid of that and sort of left some of the obsession unexplained in the relationship between the two of them. So I was like, this was the first movie of its material to be filmed in Technicolor. It's much more free adaptation. It's not quite as accurate to the original as the silent picture was. Reused the Universal's elaborate replica of the opera from the 1925 film. Because, they were a lot more elaborate in those silent eras.
Sure, yeah.
Did all right with critical review, and it was a box office success. It was also the only Universal horror film to win an Oscar for art direction and cinematography. And it looks great, and it is incredibly well shot, so that's understandable. It was the first announced from Universal as a remake of the 1925 adaptation 2 or 3 years before it actually came about. You know how it is. First director was on board. He wanted to cast Boris Karloff. Surprise, surprise, as the Phantom. That would have been weird. I also feel the same way as Boris Karloff as the Wolfman would have been weird. But he was eventually fired, and Arthur was brought in to finish it off. That is the one version of Phantom that they have.
Wow.
My favorite is, of course, Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park.
Brilliant filmmaking and acting tour de force.
So, like I said at the end of last episode, we're doing something fun here with October, and we're talking about horror distribution and all of that stuff, production companies. So, Vanessa, you've got the next pick.
Oh, well, you guys know I spent way too long in England. So how about we go with Hammer?
Of course.
Hammer Films for our next pick. I love this.
Yes. Revisited. It's been a while since we did a Hammer.
Yeah.
It has, yeah. And I've got that huge box set, so I got to get through at least another one.
There you go.
I would like to remind people that you can go to this amazing podcast called The Secret History of Hollywood, and that guy has done I think it's a 6-part series called A Universe of Horrors, and it's just the background on all of these Universal horror films. Really, really cool podcast. So this is the part where I thank everybody for liking, sharing posts, and participating in the value for value model. If you're not sure what the value for value model is, it's if you're getting some kind of value out of this, go ahead and put some kind of value back into it.
If your value is even, these fucking idiots don't know what they're talking about, you got something out of it. So feel free to let all your friends know that they need to check out this whatever you think of podcast.
Right.
It's amazing. It's an amazing podcast.
There you go.
I'd just like to single out a couple of people who have reached out to me just recently. Andrew Byers, happy birthday, Andrew. Will Lau, Mike DeBronzo, Chris Grassi have been sending me various things in my private messaging.
In your privates?
In my privates.
All righty.
No, I don't need to know about that.
Okay, So before we take off, stay tuned for the end of the episode because Eric will have randomized the entries for the H.P. Lovecraft digital pass, which will be, as this episode comes out, it'll be then the next day that the Lovecraft Film Festival starts. Yeah. And hey, everybody, how about a big congratulations and best wishes to our very own Vanessa Williams, who will be married after this episode.
Oh, my God.
Yay.
It's so exciting.
I'm going to barf.
Wow. Enthusiasm. Oh, yes. No, I love my man. It will be a great day.
It's just, I'm an introvert. These are not fun experiences for introverts on certain levels.
It's going to be great.
It'll be fun.
It's
all right. That's the end of the show, guys. We'll be back in 7 short days, and we are talking Hammer horror.
Transportation and other considerations for Strange Eons Radio produced by Pan Am Airlines. When you think of traveling, think of Pan Am. You can't beat the experience. Guests of Strange Eons Radio stay at Econo Lodge Everett. It's an easy stop on the road, you know what we mean. Strange Eons Radio is recorded live in front of a studio audience. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a positive review on your favorite podcast app. Sit, Ubu, sit.
Ew, I don't need to know about that.